Welcome, everybody, to Cycle Jerks Podcast, episode 116. I'm Mike Stewart, joined today, as always, by the
Lovely and talented. Just say it. Just say it.
cantankerous, and nasty Dave Dalton. How you doing, Dave?
I'm good. Good.
Good. All right. And we are super excited to be joined today with the executive director of the NorCal Racing League and so many other wonderful things that involve cycling, Vanessa Hauswald. How are you?
Morning. Morning. It's good to be here. I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming on.
Welcome to the podcast. We always like to find out with our guests, how did it start with you and the bicycle? Where did the bicycle come into your life, and can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Napa, California, out in the hills. And since we were little, we were, of the kind of free range children. So
Feral.
we were expected to ride our bikes to school every day down Monticello Road, and so we were forced into it when we were kids. But then my father has always been into cycling, and so he started doing road touring with us when we were small, probably 7, 8, 9 years old. My brother and I, we do short stuff in Napa, and then we started doing stuff down Highway 1, and so he'd do these big rides, kind of credit card pre-bike packing stuff. We'd ride for a ways and then stay somewhere and then ride for a ways the next day. So he really got me into it as far as road biking. But then I moved to Durango, Colorado. Fast forward a bunch of years, I moved to Durango to go to college. And that's when I really had a great education in mountain biking, skiing, kayaking, snowshoeing, all the things. So that's when I really got into mountain biking.
Yeah.
I noticed you didn't mention any academic classes that you got a great education.
We jokingly call it, the Harvard of the Rockies, but I did have a great education there as well. There's some really, really fantastic professors at Fort Lewis because people want to live there.
Sure.
But certainly the maybe most memorable part was all the outdoor stuff I was introduced to there.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Colorado's pretty amazing place. And I've been there only a handful of times, but every time I'm just really struck by the beauty of it. It's like every direction at any given time could be like the backdrop to some inspirational poster in a corporate office or something.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful everywhere.
And Durango seems to be the understated one, right? Everyone thinks about Boulder and Denver and blah 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 blah, but the people that go and live in, there's a couple local riders that have second homes in Durango, and they're crazy about it.
Yeah, it's kind of that unique location where it's in the Southwest. And so it gets something bonkers like 300 days of sunshine a year, even though it snows and there's great skiing. But it's just really, the high desert ecosystem is really unique and spectacular. And the weather's awesome also for riding. You can ride through most of the winter. You might have heard of this kid named Sepp who comes from there.
Yeah.
Just won a little race.
Yeah. No big deal. Not really. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so you mentioned a lot though. You're out there, you're hiking, you're doing all these skiing, and that's where you got introduced to the mountain bike, and that's what stuck is the mountain bike.
Yeah, it did. I just I like I said, I like all bikes. Really doesn't matter. But I just found that I love being out in and getting as far out into the backcountry as possible. So whether it's on foot or on bike. So the mountain bike just made the most sense to me. And then it felt a little more dangerous and fun. And I kind of enjoyed that feeling. So like ripping really fast through the trees and down chunky rocks and stuff spoke to me more than dodgy cars.
Yeah.
Sorry if you guys are roadies, but you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, we all like the dirt. Yeah,
it's a common theme. It's you hear more and more of that every day. It's just part of the appeal of gravel. It's like people are done with cars. That's just it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay. So you go to college in Colorado, and then it sounds like a really incredible place to go to school, and you discover all these new things. And then, but at some point you came back to Northern California. Did you come back right after college, or did you hang out for a few years and think maybe this is my new home?
Yeah, that's a good question. I hung out for many years, and I actually I graduated with a degree in English and dance, but then I decided that I really loved bikes, and I went to work for Backroads as a guide. So I
Oh,
worked for them for many years doing trips in the Western United States and camping trips, cycling trips, multi-sport trips, and all that. I mean, it was a blast. I did so it was seasonal work. So it was kind of doing the
Sounds like your dad taught you well then.
yeah. It was like a fun mix of doing that and then coming back to Durango in the winter and working at the ski area, at the t-shirt shop so I could get a free pass to ski. And it was great. It was an awesome lifestyle.
but
um,
that college degree to work.
exactly. Yeah, and then I knew that eventually I wanted to teach high school. And that eventually I did want to live back in Northern California because it's just such an incredible place to live, as you guys know.
Yeah.
And my family's here, and all my family's from California, and so I met this amazing human at a bike race named Yuri,
Yes.
and it turns
His
out he
name-
also lived in California.
Oh,
So
goodness.
it motivated me a little bit to eventually make the move to come back.
Does anyone know where I can,
On my teaching credential.
anyone know where I can get some goo?
Oh, I mean, seriously, right over here.
That's what that is.
Oh my gosh. It's our office, but it's like just all cycling stuff.
Yes. Well, you two make an amazing couple, and Yuri's been on the podcast before, and obviously just inducted into the Gravel Hall of Fame. That must have been a pretty special experience for the both of you.
It really was, and I'm sure you guys know, people had feelings about the Gravel Hall of Fame when it first opened, right? It
Yeah.
was like, oh, the sport's too young to have a Gravel Hall of Fame, and so he was in the second class, which was this year, 2023, of inductees. And so he was super honored. And he was also like, well, how do I feel if this is the way people feel about the Gravel Hall of Fame, And so he talked to some Hall of Famers here locally and some of our friends who are in the mountain bike or cycling Hall of Fame. One of them being our friend Otis Guy. And then one of them being our good friend Rebecca Rush, who's in the mountain bike Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
They both really had awesome perspective, and that was that cycling stories need to be told, and the history needs to be written down. And if we don't celebrate the history and the stories of what we're doing, then just like anything in life, what happens to it? What happens to the history if we don't tell it, or if we change it, or if we try and revise it later? So from that perspective, and then I think I call him Uncle Otis, but Uncle Otis always has sage advice for me, and for Yuri, he said, it's never a problem to celebrate our success. It's okay. It's okay. Like, and so that perspective about the importance of history really resonated with Yuri. And so he was so super proud. It was for me, to be able to go out there and to see him get inducted alongside with some other amazing people was a huge highlight in our life for sure. And Yuri really has, I'm sure he talked about it on the podcast, but he's really created a community out there and in Emporia, Kansas, where he's gone to do the Unbound race for so many years. And so a big part of that is just this like other family out there that we never thought we'd have another family in Kansas of all places, and now we have part owner of a freaking bike shop in Kansas.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I couldn't couldn't believe
Okay.
he was talking about retail. I'm like, oh,
I
Yuri, what are you
know.
doing? Right.
I know. And we're obviously gonna get rich on this one. Let me tell you.
Oh yeah.
Ask Dave. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Right, Dave?
Good on you. You should go start spending that money now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Trying
Oh.
to avoid some of those catastrophic mistakes you spoke about earlier, but I don't know,
Yeah.
man.
Well, I'll tell
Okay.
you, there's
I was
always going to
just
be like these haters. I mean, unfortunately, social media is really neat in a lot of ways because you're able to follow around a lot of people and you could stay you're loosely aware of people's activities and what they're doing. But, anybody with a pulse can have a comment. And a lot of these comments, I mean, there's a bunch of bots out there, and then there's also just people, I don't know, in some instances it just brings out the worst. If something really good is happening, like the Gravel Hall of Fame, that's really cool, and it's something that all cyclists should be excited about. But and then so I'm sure there's most of the comments were positive, but then there's always somebody that's got to buck that, and then it starts like this whole hater group or whatever. But yeah, it's silly for anybody to think that it's not deserving of a Hall of Fame, because there's, like, think about Rebecca, think about Yuri, some of the people that were there at the very beginning of it, and that have really helped formed and shape the sport. So I was so excited when I saw that Yuri was getting inducted, and yeah, couldn't be there, but I was just like, yes.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
but
Thank
yeah,
you.
I don't want to make this about Yuri because we've already had him on, right? So
Yeah, he's old news.
Yeah, yeah.
but it's funny how the world, like, this world keeps colliding. We've had Jack Ultracyclist on, and he's all excited about going to Unbound to see Yuri.
Yeah.
Anna Hicks gives a shout out to Goo, and
Yeah.
so we go, Yuri. She goes, oh, he's great. Now we got
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
the
then,
center of our universe, apparently.
yeah. Well, then it's my turn to say about that same about Jack. He is
Yes.
Oh,
an incredible human, and I don't know him well at all. We just he stayed with us out at the Gravel Hall of Fame
Yeah.
event in Kansas. So we got to hang out for a few days, and I was just really, he's such, you guys know from having him on your podcast, he's such a good conversationalist. He's
Yep.
super curious. He's super open-minded. He is really willing to talk about hard stuff.
Yeah.
And he's just lovely and funny. And so as soon as I met him, I was just so excited that Yuri and he were friends. And they've got some big secret projects in the works for next year.
Nice.
But he's an amazing person. I look forward to getting to know him better.
Yeah.
I can't say enough. I follow him on Instagram, and the way he opens up, he and this other guest that we've had on, Dad Bod Cyclist, and they're just so open. And he had a video the other day about, this is Mental Health Awareness Month, right? Or suicide.
Suicide.
Suicide prevention.
Suicide prevention month and day. He's just so candid and so moving. His stuff is incredible. So
Yeah.
yeah. And now he's got a new movie out, right? Melting Heights.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but
Yeah.
but looking forward to it. I know they just did a screening in Girona. But yeah, I mean, that vulnerability in men in particular is not super common
Yeah.
in publicly. I mean, in my world.
I agree. Yeah.
So when someone is that way, I think it builds trust, allows
Yeah.
us to build trust pretty quickly, and also just to connect on a deeper level than how's your day and how's your Strava or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. I think it speaks to their confidence overall too. I think a lot of men struggle with their not to get all Dr. Phil on us here, but I think a lot of guys struggle with their confidence, and so they end up faking it, like, oh, I know how to do this, of course, and I'm tough in this. But when you see somebody that's just willing to share that, that takes true confidence, even though it may not come off as like confidence. But yeah, Jack's amazing. And that, what a year that guy put. Oh my gosh, that the million-meter year, it's just insanity of the best kind. And yeah, so I'm a huge fan of him, and I like Yuri, you know, I just look forward to what's next for him and to follow along. But all right, so like we're getting off track here. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
As we so often do.
Yes.
That's why we don't prep.
Yes.
So I think we left off at teaching credentials, right?
Yeah. I'll jump back in there. So yeah, I came back to California, got my teaching credential, and started to teach senior English at Casa Grande High School here in Petaluma. And at the time, Yuri was a first grade teacher, and it was always funny because
yeah, that's right.
He would be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you teach 12th grade," and I'd be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you teach first grade." You know?
Yes. All right.
But we had a great time. Both of us really, really enjoyed teaching and got to make so many real connections with so many kids. And in fact, I still have a number of kids who I'm kind of an auntie to. Yuri and I don't have kids, but I have a number of kids that were in my class I just really connected with over the years, and on bikes too, because I started a mountain bike team at my school, and you know, are still friends. So it was a really, really rewarding time in our lives.
When was this? What?
Great question.
Not a trick
like
one. So
early 2000s,
okay.
2000s. Yeah. So I think Yuri was a teacher longer than I was, but we both got into the bike industry about the same time. We both left. He left to go to it was either Marin Bikes or Bike Monkey, and then I left to take over for the founder of NICA and the NorCal League, because he had the fantastic idea to take the model of what he was doing here in NorCal and take it nationally to create the National Interscholastic Cycling Association. So at that time, I was, like I said, I had started a team and I loved it. So basically, I had heard about the league. It was in its nascent years, but I didn't know much about it. And I went out and volunteered one time, and I thought it was awesome. So I started a team with a math teacher at my school who also liked to ride. And bonus, we got out of staff meetings because we practiced on Wednesdays, so we didn't have to go to staff meetings. It was fantastic, because if you coach, you get to to bail on that. So but I just realized pretty quickly that the connection I was experiencing in the classroom with kids I could have on bikes. And I didn't have to go home and grade research papers all night and work a ton of hours outside of work if I were to work with kids on bikes. And in sometimes even deeper connections outside of the classroom with them. So I joined the board of directors at the NorCal League, again, just because I thought it was a cool organization, wanted to learn more about it. And then when I learned that Matt Pritzinger, the founder, was going to start NICA, I just kind of did some soul searching and didn't have a plan to be a teacher my whole life. So I just went, I have no idea how to run a nonprofit. I have no training. Perfect. Why don't I go for it? See if I can get the job. And so I was lucky enough to get it, and then left the classroom, and then just really taught myself and surrounded myself with good mentors to help me learn how to do this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and so what year was that you took over NICA?
2008.
2008. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Still going strong.
I know.
Wow.
Like 15th or so year. And that's kind of rare these days. Obviously, I think we change jobs about every 7 years, right? In general, Americans do. And so I've had it, and being leading a nonprofit for that long, it's a long time. But I have just found it so challenging and so fun. And so rewarding to do, both with kids and with the adults, because you guys, the adults that coach are such incredible people.
Yeah.
So it's just been motivating. And then I did join the NICA board of directors last year, because I am now the longest standing. I have the most history with the organization now. There's one other employee who works in finance who has been there as long as I have, but I thought it was important to be able to provide that perspective as the organization grows and evolves, and now has 30 leagues across America. So and there's all sorts of other opportunities for NICA as well too. So anyway, I wanted to just be part of it, and not only to provide the historical perspective, but I'm kind of opinionated too. So I was like, I could be the voice of the league directors on the NICA board, and hopefully help, provide the voice from the ground.
Right.
So is this it, like the definition of, if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life? Is that, I mean, does that speak to the longevity? Is that, if you've been there that long, is that kind of ring
100%,
true? Yeah.
100%. And, there are some work days, and we do a lot of manual labor, doing big events. And there are some politics involved in youth sports. You'd be shocked to hear. And,
I wouldn't actually.
Everywhere.
And, there's in California, we're working with land managers and trying to gain access to land, both public lands and private lands. And I've gotten really more into the advocacy side of things. So there are just so many facets to it. And so when you say, yeah, if you love it, you don't work a day in your life, it really, it's true, because I do love it and it has kept me motivated. But it is also true that there are some really hard things outside of what it appears to be just riding around with kids.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny how you presented that, almost apologizing for having the job for so long. I think it's tremendous, because, but I'm also someone who's been, I worked for Giant now. This is my 22nd year, maybe 23. I don't know. Yeah, but it's coming up on 23 years. And I could totally relate to what you said, because I love what I do, but also there's a lot of work. But when you love it, you just feel differently about it. It's not like you said, grading research papers till all hours of the night. Although sometimes there's some late nights where you have to do things you don't want to do. But when you see the greater goal and you're so connected to it, yeah, it just makes it so much easier. And I think the organization probably really benefits, because it takes that type of passion and commitment to really move the needle, especially with some of the bigger, broader issues that you're talking about with advocacy and land management and access and all that stuff. That can be very muddy area.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, it's interesting. I've teamed up with MTB, the California Mountain Bike Advocacy Organization, which has been really great, because I won't bore you too much with it, but as you can imagine, we don't have courts, we don't have a track. And so there's no reason we shouldn't, but we don't at most schools. And so we really, and because we're constantly growing 15 to 20% per year in student participation, we have an impact. And in places like, what's an example? Like Folsom Lake, as one example, we have a ton of teams out there, and it is so great. We're so proud of it. And it's also, there can be conflict with other trail users, because there are just so many damn kids out there,
Yeah, what a problem.
And by the way, you're not boring us with that at all, because this is just something I just can't wrap my head around, right? Is like, such a great thing, mountain biking, such great areas around here, Mount Diablo, I pick Mount Diablo, but obviously you say Folsom Lake, and then there's people that say no. And I just And to me, it seems a lot of times that the reasons that they give are just bullshit, right? So it just, and I'm sorry, I know you're trying to be an advocate, and we gotta, but it just seems so ridiculous that there's resistance to letting trails be built, or giving access to trails that already exist. I just don't understand it. So please elaborate. Please keep going, because it's not boring to me at all.
Okay, good. Well, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, look, Mount Diablo is cool. I haven't ridden over there in years, but like there could be way better legal single track access, right? Like right now it's mainly very steep fire roads. They're quite dangerous for downhilling with beginners.
Yes.
You know, a downhill fire road is not ideal for someone who's learning how to mountain bike, right? And so
Agreed.
the it's vastly different depending on what county you're in too, right? So if you're in Marin County, you're going to have a totally different experience advocating for trails than if you're in Lake County. So we have really you know, we bang our heads against the wall in some places, and in some places it's a free-for-all. So it is one of our biggest challenges, and I would say for the organization as a whole, for NICA as a whole, it is something that we need to focus even more on, because we have not seen the sport stop growing. We have not seen a slowdown. In fact, since COVID, we've had more interest in the sport because, as you guys know, a lot more people got into it during COVID. So we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And we are the majority of the people doing the maintenance of our local trails. So when we have trail days, we bring out, and by we, let me take a step back and say mountain bikers in general, not the NorCal League, not NICA. We do our part for sure, but like as far as mountain bikers, we are the people that are showing up to do the trail work. We are not seeing big participation by equestrians and hikers and stuff. So that part is a little hard, you know, too, when you're the ones maintaining for, advocating for, fighting for, and then being denied access is tough. So
I think that's a unique mentality among, I mean, I don't see any of my roadie guys going, hey, there's a pothole, let me go to Home Depot and get some asphalt and plug it, right? But I don't know one mountain biker that wouldn't, if you just said, hey, guys, we have a trail maintenance day here, or if Mount Diablo was to call them and say, hey, guys, could you bring your picks and your shovels? I don't know one mountain biker that wouldn't do it, right? And I think that is a unique mindset. And yeah, to your point, like how many hikers and how many horseback riders, with all due respect to them, are saying, sign me up. I don't know. It doesn't seem that way. But
that's a hilarious point about road bikers going to fill a pothole. Didn't Arnold Schwarzenegger just get busted for like filling a pothole in his neighborhood? And then he did. And then like the next day the city was like, dude, we're doing work over there. You just filled our
Well, I could tell you that Dave, even on the road, Dave has that mentality, because we were coming back from Diablo one day, and there was like some ground cover piece that had popped out and was sitting in the road. And he's like, hold up. I'm like, what? And he's like, I got to plug this hole over here. I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't even see it. And then, or maybe I saw it and didn't even think twice about it. And he, so we put the cover back on the hole, and then we continued on. I just thought, okay.
It's funny. You watch my Strava sometime, you actually see trail maintenance, and I'm on the road, but I'm going along, and there's a big stick, and I stop and throw it out. There's if there's something in the road, because I know if it's a Friday afternoon and I'm riding down the road, I know that tomorrow 30 guys are going to come flying through here at Mach 7, and somebody's going to hit this thing, right?
Yeah, so, Caltrans ain't coming to help you with that.
Exactly. Yeah, we just had a big chunk of a sycamore fall over. I do these morning rides at Del Val, and there's this huge tree that was just out in the street. So, me and a couple other guys pulled it back in and, pushed it off to the side. But yeah, it's just, I think it's part of, I think there's a lot of elements to it. because I think the restrictive nature that we've been faced with, and then also like a lot of people that ride trail have opinions about what would make a really good trail. And so when they're given this opportunity to get out there and like maybe shape a corner or do something, that's something that, I think all of us that ride off-road want to be a part of. If we can be a part of building something that other people will enjoy for years to come. That's very appealing.
Is it changing though? I mean, are people becoming a little bit more open-minded? I know East Bay Regional Parks is an example. Well, we had Chris Baratlis on before, who's been advocating for East Bay Regional Parks, and suddenly, they've now got a plan for trails, and they just announced that it's okay to ride e-bikes on the trail. So is there a change underfoot, or are you still pushing a rock up the hill?
Both.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think again, but the East Bay Parks is a fantastic example of what really hard work and dedication by a lot of people from the Bike Coalition and that side of the bay have done over many years to get to where they are now, making those type of changes. But yeah, there are certainly more examples of that, and then there are places where it's still pushing a rock up a hill for sure. It reminds me when you were talking about projects that are important, though, I really, this doesn't have anything to do with the league or with necessarily, but I think a shining example is the Connected Communities projects that the Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship is doing up in the Sierras. I mean, that is a legacy project that we're all going to benefit from. Yeah. That's really, really incredible. And it's a really great model because they're doing multi-use trails. So most of the trails are open to motos. And they have enough space to do that too, right? We couldn't do that necessarily here because the user conflict, but multi-use trails, and then in partnership with the USFS. And so the USFS and they're really just, and then they're also getting federal money from transportation money to fund these projects. Eventually they're going to connect all these small towns that have been kind of reliant on the extraction economy for so many years. And now they're, pivoting to the recreation economy. So those kind of projects, I mean, that is really an amazing project, but those are great examples for us to follow and for other communities to go, oh, okay, this is not only fun and, people can go shred, but it's also a real economic driver.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm excited about that region. And I know Yuri has this dream of doing this credit card kind of ride where to explore the Lost Sierras. And if that happens, I definitely want to be involved on that one.
We've done a couple days of it, like 1 or 2 nights, and there's just so much, and there's so much out there, and there's no people, and it's just spectacular. I encourage you to jump on the next adventure he does up there for sure.
Yeah. Well, okay, so you do a lot of things for mountain biking. Do you get to ride? Do you get to ride enough, or
No.
do you get stuck doing all the behind the scenes stuff that makes everything go?
Oh, that's a great question. I do get to ride. My job's really flexible. So as long as I get my stuff done and my colleagues are getting their stuff done, then I can ride. So that's awesome. So I'm a cancer survivor, and I have some, I don't like to, not a disability, but I have a leg that doesn't work super well because the kind of blowback from my treatment. And so I started riding. I got an e-bike a couple of years ago. So I've been able to mix it up and use that when it's appropriate. And like I have Yuri had a gravel e-bike that he gave me, and then I have a e-mountain bike, and then I have regular bikes too. But using that tool when I need it or when my leg's not really working super well has been awesome, because it's also really motivating. I can get out after work and go rip around and get a good workout. where I might before not have done it because I would be like, oh, my leg, it's going to take me forever, you know? So, so yeah, I do get to ride, and not as often as I'd like with the teams. I'd like to get out more and ride with teams. That's actually one of my team at the NorCal League. It's one of our goals this season, is to get out more with kids and coaches and see, you know, just like see how we can help and at the team level. But yeah, I get to ride a lot.
Yeah.
How long a survivor?
Let's see, February 14th, 2011. So that would be 12 years.
Wow.
I had super advanced stage colon cancer when I was 35. I got diagnosed. I was super healthy. I had no family history of it. I had no genetic markers for it, like zero reason for that to, you know, I've done all the things in my life to not get cancer, like not smoke cigarettes and be a nice person and eat healthy organic food and you know, exercise and all that. So it was a big shock.
So no symptoms whatsoever?
I mean, the year leading up to it, yes, for sure.
Oh, okay.
Like, I started losing tons of weight and some weird stuff, but I never thought I had cancer. Neither did my doctors. You know, they were just like, oh, maybe you have an autoimmune disease, or maybe you have this or that. So, but the bike, honestly, it sounds cliche, but the bike was a big motivating factor for me for getting better, because I was so you know, going through like the chemo and radiation and surgeries and all that, and I got so thin and weak and I couldn't do anything. But I always just had this vision of like, I will get back to that. I will get back to riding bikes. And having that vision and just knowing what it feels like to be out in the middle of nowhere on your bike, and what an amazing, empowering feeling that is, was really super motivating for me when I was in the fight. For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. And so the leg, so the treatments affected the leg, and is it the kind of thing where if you go, let's say you do a hard ride, whatever that is, right, on your acoustic bike, is it consistently like the next day the leg's going to be a problem, or is it more random where like, oh wow, today my leg's just giving me grief today?
Well, it's weird. It's just I can feel way less power in that leg as soon as I get on my bike every single time. And the same with like hiking something steep, that hinging motion. As soon as I get on the bike, I'm like, oh, that one's coming along with the other one. See my fingers? That one's just like going along with the other one, right?
Yeah.
And so we've done all sorts of tests and nerve tests and MRIs and like all sorts of stuff. And actually, for a long time, we just thought it was a symptom of getting a lot of radiation to my hips, and that there's just radiation plexitis, which is, you know, it's basically you thrash yourself, you bring yourself to almost death with all the chemo and stuff, and then you hope you live. And the radiation that I got, the doctors thought, okay, well, it's just it affected the nerves. Well, recently this summer, I've had some other health challenges, and I had a vascular surgeon figure out what exactly is happening. And I guess I forget now, of course I forget the technical term, but it's a thing that actually some pro cyclists suffer from, where I think it's the femoral artery is like kinked.
Okay.
And so that doesn't allow enough blood flow to go to the leg. And so the other veins, they take over. So your leg is still fine, but the other veins, because the human body is amazing. The other veins take over and help, but it just means that don't get enough blood flow to that leg. So that, I think for some pro cyclists get it. You've probably heard of them getting it because you're in that position, that seated cycling position. And for so long, that repetitive motion injury can happen. And for some people, it's fixable. So mine is not, but at least I know now. I think the surgeon was freaked out because when he came in and told me that he sat staring at my, slides forever to try and figure it out. He finally figured it out. And I got so excited. And he's like, this is bad news, Vanessa. This is not good. Like, it's not fixable. Like, and I was like, I it's okay. Like, I'm not insane.
Yeah. At
Sorry,
least
I'll
I
stop
know
yelling
now.
on your podcast.
No, it's
Um,
okay.
but no, I was like really happy to actually just know what it was, so I could visualize that getting better.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well,
it got to be a huge relief to know.
now
And
Dave and I, oh, so go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I was just
Go.
gonna talk on e-bike for a second because Dave and I, we don't. I mean, I've had an e-bike. I had a pack yak for a while. I loved it, but our main cycling, we don't ride e-bikes, but we love e-bikes. And what there's so many people, cyclists initially resisted e-bikes, right? There was a big segment of cyclists that were just like, e-bikes, it's cheating or whatever, whatever their take was. And it was frustrating being someone who was slinging e-bikes, selling e-bikes, and trying to talk to people about e-bikes and listening to their position on it. And you just had to kind of bite your lip a little bit, and but now we're in a much different place with e-bikes than we were when they launched, and over the last, let's call it 6-7 years, there's been this broad acceptance of e-bikes for the most part. There's still some fringe haters, we'll call them. But so is there any e-bike activity with the high school kids? Yes. Okay. So,
Yeah. Well, with the coaches. So what,
makes
yeah.
perfect sense.
and speaking of the pack yak, that's the giant like cargo bike
Oh,
with
yeah.
the baskets on the side. We just got one.
Yes.
It's like the best thing ever. We never drive.
It's so awesome.
We do everything on it in town. I really hope that part of the sector grows and we see that people just start using them more. I know
Me too.
Specialized just came out with a really cool one too, and a lot of, so more people are hopefully going to get rid of their cars, but or not get rid of their cars, but not drive them as much.
Yeah.
So as far as coaching, yeah, I mean, what we've found is that it can be intimidating for an adult, even if you're fit and you ride a lot, and to call yourself a coach or to get into coaching because you feel like, oh, I have to be this fast or I have to have this background knowledge. And the kids are super fast. You're not going to be faster than them for very long. Mike, you've ridden with the kids in San Ramon and stuff, and like, they're super fast. And so what the e-bikes allow our coaches to do, those who choose to use them, is to actually coach at the front. So, because a mountain bike practice is not like a mountain bike ride that you go on with your friends. I mean, this is like practice, like a school sport. So we're doing skills and drills and sessioning things and learning from each other and looking at body position and doing all that. And on an e-bike, many of those coaches can get up to the front and work with kids who are faster than them. And that has proved to be really, really powerful. So it's a really great tool for that. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have more coaches get them in the next couple of years, because, they're seeing each other, what they can do with them. And it's pretty exciting.
I'm pretty connected to the San Ramon team. And right.
I love them.
And
Coach Ken.
a number of coaches, Coach Ken, but a number of them, well, there's two things about that we need to explore is the people that are involved, and then I want to talk about the kids after the e-bike thing. But that's exactly what's happened. There's one guy, Devon. He doesn't even have a kid in the program. He just loves mountain biking, and the guy can shred downhill. He just couldn't keep up going uphill. And to your point, he's just, I'm a coach and I can't keep up. And so he got an e-bike. I mean, for a lot of reasons, I'm sure, but that was one of the big drivers. If he's going to be able to coach and mentor on the ride, he's got to be able to keep up. And that's why he got an e-bike. And, so they're awesome. It's just awesome and a great endorsement for the e-bike. So,
well, I think
one more bike. Everyone needs one more bike. I mean, someone said to me at one point, he happens to own a bike shop, but he did say, I said something about, I don't know if I'm going to get a new regular bike or an e-bike. He's like, well, do I want to have more fun or less fun? It was kind of funny.
Listen, and to your point, right? There's some talent out there. When the year I coached with them, they put me in with the A group, and they said, because you're fit, you'll be I couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep
Yeah.
up with these guys. And I'm
Right.
like, I'm not coaching because they're getting to the top faster than me and they're faster downhill. I'm coaching here, right?
Yeah,
So
it does kind of put you in a position of what can I teach these kids,
yeah,
in a way. But just because a lot of it's just youth, right? It's mostly youth and exuberance and an incredible motor when you're that age. And so and maybe a little bit of lack of wisdom when it comes to descending, right? All those things kind of work in your favor for a while until it doesn't, So to still feel like you can coach them. I understand the sentiment of like feeling like, geez, well, is practice where I just, I talk to the kids at the beginning and then they just blast up the hill and I got nothing to say because
Yeah.
I can't talk when I'm riding that fast, or getting dropped or whatever, but yeah, the e-bike. I think a big change in the e-bike is it was always kind of like initially it was like old people and commuters was thought to be the market. And then something wonderful happened. Kids got into it. And kids being, let's call them 25 and under, those kids started getting into e-bikes. And to me, I think that's when the mentality about what an e-bike is really changed with the cycling community, because it was no longer just the thing the old person needed to get up the hill. It was like, wait, these cool kids that are shredders are now riding these e-bikes. And so that helps the even younger riders look at it in a different way. And it just brings the education and acceptance to a completely different level. And but so in that vein, is there a thought of maybe an e-bike category for high school racing?
Hell no. No, sorry. I mean,
Yeah.
we are not considering that at this time.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But no, for many reasons, but certainly what people do outside, because racing, we want to, like, it is ultimately a competition of your strength and fitness and ability and all that. And for us,
Yep.
that is just a simpler, right? So e-bikes, I mean, I just don't see it happening. But the piece, I'll just add one more piece about this, is just that in general, I've found that cycling can be kind of people can be judgmental about each other, what kind of ride, what kind of bike they have, what kind of fitness they have, what kind of
hell yeah.
kit old is there,
Yeah.
are they wearing the short socks, are they like whatever, all these different stupid things. And so if we can just get over ourselves because of whatever reason that we have, and just be like, look, this person doesn't wear spandex when they ride, this person doesn't look like a cyclist, this person only uses the bike for this, like, and just be stoked on people getting out and enjoying what we love. Like, that's where we need to get. And so I think,
Yep.
I mean, just get over ourselves with all of the BS.
Yes.
There's a lot of BS.
So,
oh, sorry, Dave.
no, I just watching the time here, and I mean I could go all day, but I'm sorry, you're right. There's a lot of BS. Let's just yes. So I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm just chomping at the bit here to get your perspective. You mentioned a few times that the growth of 15-20%, whatever, and it is amazing. It's something I think a two-part question. What do you think is the appeal, right, for people, kids, to get involved with the mountain bike? Because you don't see that on the road, right? You're not seeing the San Ramon doesn't have a high school road team, right? But yet they've got, I think, at times like 80 people signed up for the team, but maybe 50 participate. And so I think there's this great appeal. And some of these kids, it's their first sport that team sport that they've actually been involved in. They didn't play soccer, they didn't play baseball, but they played that. So that's the part number one. What is the appeal? And if it is so appealing, then why don't more schools have this. Like, I don't think there's one in Livermore. I don't think there's one in Dublin, for example. And those kids actually come up and practice with the San Ramon team. So I don't know. That's it's a two-part question if you can remember both of them, but I'm curious as to the appeal and then why isn't it growing even in other areas?
Yeah, those are great questions, and I could also talk all morning about it. But to attempt to be succinct, I think that the appeal is largely in the community component of it. So if you look at any of what we're trying to do is our mission is, build strong body, mind, and character and community first through cycling. And so we have our philosophy is that we're using the bike as a tool for character development and community building. And so that's how we train our coaches, and how we get adults involved is like, hey, that we are going to create a space for kids who didn't necessarily, like you said, fit in or weren't attracted to stick and ball sports or team sports in general. So big generalization, but oftentimes those same kids might not necessarily have a big community at school, and because they're not involved with sports, traditional sports. And so we have found that team component is really essential. And then there's a lot of other pieces that go along with the team. There's the camping together, there's hanging out outdoors together and that piece is a little different too, and it's really fun for kids and different, and a way for them to connect not on their phones. And so there is like a real human connection that the team is growing, and I would argue something that we're all looking for right now.
Yeah.
Now, an interesting thing is, like, we have a lot of race promoters who will open a teen category and then be like, well, call me and be like, well, no teams showed up. But I go to the NorCal League races and there's 3,000 kids there. Like, I opened teen category, why aren't kids showing up? And so that to me is proof that the community piece and the team piece is where the magic is. Because we can't it's more than just creating the space. It's not only inviting people in, it's or welcoming people in, but it's inviting people in. So I think a long answer to your question, the appeal is that community piece, and that real human connection piece. Not that couldn't happen on a road team, but we just, the same thing could happen in road. If there was a road cycling league, I think the same thing would happen too. If the focus of that said the league was on character development and community building, because we can get, these guys are going to get, and girls are going to get fast.
Yeah.
And they're going to build skills and all that other stuff. So building in things like we have an adventure program, we have a grit program, which is bringing more girls into the sport. We have an advocacy program that coaches can take all these tools and integrate them so that the kid who isn't very fast is still stoked and wants to stay on the team, and the kid who is super fast is feeling like she's challenged.
Right. Community, yeah, I think you nailed it there, the community thing. And the year I coached, I went up to one of the races, and the production that went into this camp area that they had, it was just like you felt like you'd almost gone away for summer camp. They've got their trailer, they have a system for setting up. This is where the food is, this is where people are sleeping. I mean, it was just an amazing experience that really had little to do with the mountain biking. There was a means for being there and not having to drive 4 hours in the morning, but it was just an amazing experience that everyone had just camping. So
yeah,
cool.
This is funny, but sometimes at our camping venues, I'll just either walk around or ride around at night the camp, and it's just, in my world, a unique experience to see adults and they're hanging out with their kids and teenagers hanging out with their parents and like around the campfire. And you know, playing night frisbee and messing around on bikes and just like being goofy and themselves and but also having fun with their parents. It's kind of
Yeah.
rare.
Yeah.
And it's a really also really sweet piece to it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then part two of that, then what, I mean, what'd you mention earlier, 30 leagues around okay. But why aren't there more? I mean, again, it's amazing to me. For example, I used it, and I'm not knocking Livermore, but Livermore, some of the greatest riding is out in the Del Val area, and yet Livermore High School doesn't have a mountain bike team, or I don't even know what high schools are out there. But
Mhm.
why aren't there more composite teams or something like that? What do you think? What do you think's the barrier there?
I'm always wondering that myself, but I think honestly, it's in order to get more kids out, we have to get more adults out. And it like we always say more kids on bikes, but I'm almost pivoting to more adults on bikes so that we can get more kids on bikes. Because as you guys know, it is a lot of time to coach.
Yeah.
And if you're into skiing, you know, it's the prime ski season when we race. And
Yeah.
a lot of people who ride bikes also ski or like snow sports. And so on, you know, almost every weekend or every weekend of the winter and spring, you're dedicated to going out with other people's kids and so honestly, like I'm working on a couple new teams, helping a couple new teams here in Sonoma County, and it's really like the superintendent's on board and the principal's on board of these couple schools, and it's great. And now we're like, okay, who's the adult? You know, and scratching around trying to figure out who's the adult that's going to do this. And it takes someone who's in it who doesn't maybe have like a newborn or someone who doesn't have a parent that they're caring for, or so, you know, it is, I think, about just getting that adult who has the time to do it, because it is a big time commitment. But get
But
this, last year we had 1,200 coaches. We had
Wow.
2,800 something kids registered to race, and we had 1,200 coaches. I mean, that's
That's
pretty amazing.
amazing. Yeah. That's a great ratio. Geez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. And the one thing I found with, at least with San Ramon, and it still sticks in my head, I just can't get it. It's just amazing, is that people that get into it really do like it. Like just like you or I get into riding and we love it, and so we just keep going and going and going. The people that are coaching in San Ramon, Bruce Bilodeau, Devon that I mentioned earlier, Bruce, right?
Oh my gosh.
What a wonderful
Oh,
human.
Bruce.
What a wonderful human. Their
And
kids aren't in
Ken.
the their kids aren't in the program anymore, right? Their kids have gone through the program and they've gone off. Some of their kids have come back and helped, but these are people that don't have kids in the program, and yet they come back year after year and they coach and they coach and they coach. So a shout out to the coaches that are involved in it. And I would hope that someone that did get involved would find that same kind of passion for it and continue on. So
Yeah,
shout out to the coaches.
shout out to the coaches and to Ken and Bruce, and then Bruce's daughter Karina, who's now coaching as well, which is awesome. And
Yeah.
I mean, look how fit those guys are. They're like
Yeah.
retired and they're super fit, and they're also super happy.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's
Yep.
something about getting out with teenagers and just riding your bike that is not bad for you, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt. Well, and for as you get older, it's harder to keep that youthful exuberance, right? And so being surrounded by young people for parts of your week is a very good thing. I think it's good. I mean, obviously it's good for the kids, but it might even be better for the adults, and just their general headspace and how they look at life. Kids are pretty amazing. And as you get old, like I'm I'm dealing with this a little bit in my personal life, so it's kind of hitting a note where we have some older people where we live on our street, and the let's call it curmudgeon in them is becoming more of their personality. It's just like, man, if I could get you on a bike and we could go ride with some young people, maybe it might change your life for the
Yes.
better, and but it's interesting when you try to I'm 57, Dave's 63, we're old, and I get hit all the time, mainly because I work with bike shops, but I always get these questions like, how do you do it, man? 57, like comments like that. And it's like, it's, I don't know, it's just fun, and it does really involve your health outside of cycling, right? Your choices that you make with your diet and your alcohol consumption and things like this. But
He always has to throw in the alcohol consumption when I'm on the
I'm sorry. I'm not someone, I'm not a big fan of alcohol.
Always has to throw that big in.
But yeah, and I sent Dave a podcast from Andrew Huberman, who is an expert on alcohol and what it does to your brain and your body, and I don't believe he's listened to it.
No.
Well, it's
I'm the
actually
ostrich.
really,
Stick my head in the sand.
Yeah.
well,
But
I mean, it is a good point. We do hear, not that everyone's doing this, but we do hear a lot from parents that they're, especially the kids who are really into it, are making a lot better choices in their
yes,
lives. And so that's a really great unintended consequence of getting into, I think, any sport, hopefully any sport. But when people figure out that sleep is super important, and protein intake, and at what time of day, and macros and micros, all the things, like, kids are
yeah,
learning earlier and caring about it, can't be a bad thing.
Right.
yeah. It's. I like to tell a story. So I coached the Tri-Valley composite team for a couple of years, and I also coached my kids through baseball and basketball during all the way up till about 14 years old. And it's really interesting, the juxtaposition of the parents. So the parents in the ball sports are very tough. They all are pseudo experts in the sport, and their child is the best. He's going places. He or she is, not being utilized correctly, needs more this, needs more that. You don't know what you're doing. This is, all this stuff is coming at you as a coach, and you're just trying to help kids develop as human beings. And, but it becomes all this extra. And then you juxtapose that with cycling, and cycling, it was so cool because we always have these baseball, we'd have the end of year pizza party at the house or whatever, and it was always kind of a little bit, as much as you try, it's just weird with some parents because their kid's a superstar and you didn't see it. But with cycling, the parents were so grateful. And, because the unexpected consequence that you're talking about, the kids like one of the things that we would teach all the time is like, look, you can play baseball, whatever, you can do all that stuff, but cycling's something you can do the rest of your life. And it's a great way to mix adventure into your life. And, so we didn't really necessarily care if they raced or not. That was my speech at the beginning. I would just be like, hey, we're going to go to races. We're going to support you in racing. But if you're not comfortable racing, that's okay too. But we are going to ask that you attend the races, because we want you to support your teammates and just be there. And it's going to be fun. And we're going to have a good time, And so, but the thing that would happen is the kids would realize, oh, if I'm going to be good at this, I've got to do this more than just practice. So I need to take care of my homework. I got to get my homework done so I can have the time to do it. I've got to manage my time better so I have more time to ride my bike. I also have to ride. I also have to eat better, because if I'm not fueled up properly, then I'm going to do terrible on my bike. And I also need to get to sleep. I got to get my rest. And so at the end of the year, we'd have this party at the house, and the parents would come up and just be like, I remember this guy put his hands on my shoulders, and pull me in like close. It was a little uncomfortable. And he goes, I just want to thank you, man. My child has completely turned the corner. He eats oatmeal now and he goes to bed early. And he's banging out his homework, you know what I mean? And it was like all this life stuff, whereas the ball sports tend to be all this you know, I don't know. That experience wasn't as great. I did love it though. I did love doing it, but the cycling, the level of appreciation from the parents, because it is life skills and it's more, I don't know, there's more of a practical application of the stuff that parents tend to fight with teenagers as they are going through their rebellious period or whatever. Yeah, I think there's just huge benefit to it and lifelong benefit. You know, if you can teach someone to love riding their bike, you are doing them a tremendous favor for the rest of their life. So it's super important work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good segue into kind of closing, because it is you know, that's what we hope. We have racing as a capstone piece of our program because it's an important piece to it, to the competition piece to a sport. But what our goal is to get people introduced to bikes, get them comfortable on it, get them skilled enough on it that they can be safe, and then and then get them stoked enough that they will want to and continue to ride it the rest of their life, whether they race or not, or
Yeah.
whether they ride road bikes or mountain bikes or e-bikes or whatever, as just to get people introduced and get them doing what we have found is really a part of our own adult community and culture and fun and health, and all the things that we know have been a benefit in our life from having the bike as such a big part of it. So that's our
Yeah.
goal for sure.
Yeah.
I want to be sensitive to time, but can you elaborate a little bit on the GRIT program? Because above all that else, we're back to this, we more participation, but there's definitely a disproportionate men or boys versus girls, men versus women. So the GRIT program is about getting more women/girls involved. Is that
Yeah,
the,
exactly. So the acronym is Girls Riding Together, and we just found that we're a co-ed sport or all ed sport, and so we all ride together, we practice together, camp together, do everything together, and we have separate categories, like on most sports that have a male category and a female category. And we just have seen over the years that our numbers of girls have hovered at the same percentage for a long time. And so we believe in equity and in giving people a hand up and in helping where we need to see or want to see growth. And so women are 50% of the population. We should be 50% of the cyclists.
Yeah.
I'd love in my time at the league to see it be 50-50 boys and girls. That would be amazing. And in order to do that, we need to do some work. And so our GRIT program is about doing, because all of our practices and rides and everything are co-ed. The GRIT program actually pulls girls out to work with, particularly with female coaches, and do single gender practices or skills clinics or whatever. We have found that in many situations, our beginners, just feel more comfortable pushing themselves when they don't have boys in the mix.
Yeah.
And we found that girls are just kind of, okay, big generalization, but inherently pretty social beings, and we like to be with one another. We like to do things together. We found a great way to recruit is to have girls recruit their friends to come out. I know that's how I got involved in soccer as a young kid. It was like a friend invited me to come out, and I don't know if I would have done it if she hadn't invited me to come out. So really just, I always think of that image of the ladder with someone climbing a ladder that's reaching down to help someone else get up the ladder with them. So the concept of like, as we lift other people up as we rise.
yeah,
So in order to get more girls there, that's what we're trying to do, is just lift up more girls and also more women coaches, so that we can have girls see women who are doing the sport as well. So also, and I could go on and on about it, but it is really important for boys and girls to have all genders to have role models that they can look up to and go, oh, I can see myself here. This is not, this is for me. If he, she, or they are doing it, so can I.
Yep.
right.
So
Awesome.
yeah, we actually have Haley Childress is one of my staff, and she dedicates a good portion of her time at the NorCal League to the GRIT program, to building it. We're starting something this year called MOB. It's Moms on Bikes. And so
Love it.
we stole it from Durango Devo. I'm not going to lie. Chad Cheney's a genius, and he came up with this concept, or he implemented it. So I talked to him about it, but so thank you, Chad. But what he saw in Durango was that moms and dads, but oftentimes moms, were dropping their kid off for an hour and a half practice, and then like going to the store and doing life, and then coming back and picking him up. And he's like, we need these ladies, they should all be riding with us, or riding on their own. So we're starting a thing this year of like, instead of dropping your kid off at practice, you come to practice, and then the moms do a ride and the kids do a ride with their coaches, but to encourage more moms to get out and to make time for themselves, and also to hopefully lure them into coaching.
I love that idea.
My humble opinion, it beats the hell out of a book club. So maybe, if you
Totally.
get it.
Totally.
Or the grocery store, or whatever else you got to do.
Yeah, exactly. Just have it delivered. Come on.
Yeah.
Ride.
Awesome. All right. Well, listen, we should wrap it up. Vanessa, thank you so much for everything you do for the mountain bike community and the high school league. It's really important work, and we all appreciate it.
Yes.
And thanks for being on the podcast with us. And hopefully we can have you back again sometime.
And love to Yuri.
I appreciate it.
Yuri.
I appreciate your interest in getting more kids on bikes, for sure. Thanks, you guys.
Beautiful. All right. That's it, everybody. Thanks for listening.